Welcome to Coffee and History. Today I'm going to be covering Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles was a royal shitbag, and if you don't know who he is, hopefully you can learn a little bit and do some research on your own as well. Whenever you hear your conspiracy theorist or whatever the fuck you want to call them rant about they and people ask who they are, fucking Allen Dulles created they. That's the guy he is. He was the type of guy that J. Edgar Hoover was deathly afraid of, if that tells you how powerful he was. So, he was a younger guy. In 1914 is when he got sent on his first mission as a diplomat, but really as a fucking intelligence officer. They sent him to Vienna, and from Vienna he went to Sarajevo, Bosnia. And in 1914, something pretty fucking big happened there. I believe it was June 28th of 1914. Is when Duke Ferdinand got assassinated, and coincidentally enough, the group that Allen was investigating are the ones that assassinated Duke Ferdinand. So from there, he went to Switzerland, and he hung low while the war broke out. And in 1917, Vladimir Lenin was trying to apply for a visa with the United States, and the one thing good that Allen did do is he put the fucking kibosh on that. But being the sneaky fucking lawyer that he was, he worked out a deal with the Germans. The Germans wanted the Russians out of the war. So basically, he secured a loan from the Schroeder Bank. You'll follow all that. You'll find out who the Schroeder Bank is. To give Vladimir Lenin money to go back to Russia to start the Bolsheviks' revolution. So Vladimir goes back to start the revolution and knocks the Russians out of the war because they're in the middle of a civil war. And war is coming to an end. And he has a brother, Allen has a brother, John, that is partners in a law firm called Sullivan and Cromwell. So at the end of the war, the people that draw up the treaty, oddly enough, is Sullivan and Cromwell. Very fucking heavy-handed in this situation. Also, Sullivan and Cromwell drew up the treaty to end the Bolsheviks' war. So he has a lot of ties with that. Whether it's coincidental or not, it seems like wherever this guy is or his family, there's a lot of fuckery going on. So in 1920, he got a position with the State Department. And a lot of people, Edward would probably know this part of history, but there was this thing called the Near East Division. And basically it was American soldiers that went up into Russia to secure armaments, railroads, and basically help train Russian soldiers. He would periodically come home and go back there. In 1921, him and his brother are the ones that basically formed the Council on Foreign Relations. And that's when he became the chairman of the Rockefeller Association or bank or whatever. And he also sat on a chair at the Schroeder Bank, the same bank that gave Vladimir money. From 1922 to 1926 is basically where he was grooming intelligence officers and pretty much prepping for the next World War, because they already knew it was happening. The Versailles Treaty, we can touch on that to tell you why he knew World War II was going to happen. Basically, this was a treaty that royally fucked the Germans. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll tell you this is the type of shit that it allowed. Germany was able to pay the first year of reparations for the war because they had to pay for the whole fucking thing. Everybody sighed. It was all Germany's fault, so they had to pay for it. By the second year, they couldn't make a payment. And it was in this treaty that any time the French could just go in and take shit out of the country. So the French started going into Germany, and they started disassembling entire factories, the most advanced machinery on Earth, and putting it on railroad carts and taking it back to France and selling it. mainly to merchants and bankers. Some of it came back to the United States, people like Henry Ford, and this is what will probably tie Henry Ford into World War II as well. They also went, there was a place in East Germany where basically all their coal comes from. The French sent the military up in there, and they pretty much enslaved the entire town to work to take coal back to France. So anybody that knew that was going on, it should have been no surprise what was about to fucking come. So in 1930 is when he became part of the League of Nations. And anybody familiar with the League of Nations knows what type of shit organization that is and everything they did. Also in 1930, he also got a chair seat at BIS, and the Schroeder Bank that he sat on the chair of came to be part of the BIS. And anybody that's familiar with this, BIS basically is the central banking system of the world. Every fucking European country, South American countries, America. When people say that the Jews started the war or control the money, no, it's the fucking Swiss. The Swiss and the Philippines is where all the money is. And I will later tie in how that guy is, how Alan's tied into both these groups. So, supposedly, Alan takes a little business trip to Germany in 1935. And he was so appalled by what he seen there that he gave Hitler a loan through the Schroeder Bank, gave him a loan and brokered a deal with DuPont. And DuPont was basically how Germany built up their military. All their powder, everything came from DuPont. And that came through something that was partially owned by Allen and a name you guys are familiar with, Prescott Bush. The way it got here was a company called the American and Hamburg Shipping Company, I believe. And basically, they would use this company to bring in armaments and also launder money through like war bonds. So they already fucking knew a war was coming. And Allen already had previous relations, which I skipped ahead a little bit. In 1930, he came and met with Mussolini, he met with Hitler, and that minister of Russia, Leninov. And so basically there's what do we got? About a 20-year period of just fucking chaos that this guy caused. And take note that he was around until the 60s. So I'm just touching on this. I'll have a few more videos to come. Hopefully you enjoy it and I don't jump around too much in the next one. So, enjoy your fucking coffee. If I fucked anything up, tell me about it in the comments.